Okay, so I've got 170 Facebook shares, multiplied by an average, let's say to make it easy, 200 friends. I've got a chance to reach 35,200 people. On Twitter, those 300 tweets have been sent to possibly, because each person spreads it, shares it with their followers, has been sent 308 tweets to 500 followers on each account. That's 154,000. Potential audience reach, it's approaching 200,000. Now, not all of them are going to read it. In fact, a very small fraction will. But I'm trying to get across to you the leverage and the amplification that social media, where friends tell friends and other friends tell other friends, and they actually trust them. I think you saw the numbers up there, it's in the 70s. So that's the amplification potential of. Okay. Major benefits of social media. It allows you to communicate and engage actually with your Facebook and Twitter. Actually, people can make comments, you actually can receive information. So on Twitter you can get retweets, people passing a message on, people can make comments. You can actually on Twitter communicate in what you call a private channel. So in Twitter it doesn't have to be out in the open, you actually can talk privately on Twitter. So that's really good if you just want to directly communicate with someone on Twitter. So Twitter's actually got a lot of power. In fact, I've heard about Rudd being deposed, that's a very nice word, on Twitter when it happened, because it was real time. It was posted. In fact, it appeared on the media 10, 15 minutes later. So it allows you to communicate with fans and receive feedback. One of the other powerful things about social media is it spreads your content. Because people actually share it, like I gave the example the other day, or just before. So what you're doing is you've got your home base, your blog, your website, and that's what I call the home base. So I want to put this in perspective. A lot of people are actually saying, well, why shouldn't I just have a website and it's just be a Facebook presence, that's it. Well, the issue with just having your digital presence on someone else's site that you're renting, because you don't own Facebook, Facebook does. Okay, I have seen it even with a digital agency, and I think they maybe trialled it, but they actually ran their website hosted on a Facebook page. You've got to realise that when you have a domain name, it's your own, like whether it's a website or a blog, or a combination of both, you bought it, it's yours, you have control. You don't actually have to abide by the rules of Facebook. I did get banned from Twitter for 4 hours because I broke their rules, whatever their rules were for that particular day. So under their authority, so I got banned. So what you've got to do is with a blog or website is that's your home base. That's where you live, that's where you publish. And then what you do is you put your content out onto your social media channels. So what you're doing is you're creating a synergistic universe where your content can be published and spread, and where other people can spread it for you. So really what's happening is your content is being crowdsourced. It's being created. I get people to read comments on my blog and actually say, great, thanks for sharing that, and that's not me saying it, it's someone else. And that's the power of forums and that sort of thing as well. Okay, why is this slide up here? Email. I just want to put something in perspective here. Social media is not the answer to your marketing problems. It just enhances it. It helps with your marketing. It leverages your marketing. It gets you out into the digital space in different ways so you can communicate on channels where people are hanging out. And you might have noticed with the Infinity email newsletter, it actually points back to our blog. We actually can subscribe to our newsletter in different places as well. So what we're doing is we're actually integrating social media and email. So don't dismiss email. What I'm saying is I'm just trying to heighten your awareness of the actual new media, social media, to get your message, to get your ideas out. So keep it in perspective. Social media is great, but it's an addition to what you're doing. If there's something that's not working for you, you've got a Yellow Pages ad and it's not working, stop it, invest in something that works. Trial something, do something different. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at the 5 major social media channels. And Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla. I remember when I started on Facebook, it was I think it was about 80 million. It is now 500 million and growing. And you might have noticed in the YouTube video that we had that it actually added 200 million people, I think, in 12 months. Twitter. They don't issue statistics on their audience, but back in March when they ran their chirp conference, they actually revealed some statistics, and there were 108 million users a month. So don't dismiss Twitter. The United States is very much a bigger user of Twitter, but you've got to keep in mind that Australia is in catch-up mode. From my viewing of the marketplace and social media, we're actually about 2 years behind the Americans in terms of use of social media. The other thing too is our use of e-commerce is actually way behind the United States as well. In fact, it's about 3% of total retail spend is actual e-tail or online e-commerce. The Americans is nearly 9%. So Australia's got a lot of catching up to do in both the digital space, not only in social media, but actually in online commerce.
Excuse me, Jeff, is it true? Yes. I read some article that talked about Australians being the highest per capita users of Facebook.
They are. So it's actually over 7 hours on average per month.
Right.
Yeah. So the Australians are using social media quite well, but in terms of how we use it for business, we're still in catch-up mode.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So if that means we're in catch-up mode at the moment, that would be the best time to join it?
You got it. Social media and content marketing, which is getting your message and your information out to your clients, it's not a zero-sum game. In other words, if you start now and you have 500, let's say you do one blog post a week, you've got 50 great articles about how to help your customers with their problems, how to help them grow. You're 50 articles ahead of your competition they start in a year's time. So they're in constant catch-up mode. So it's not a zero-sum game. All right? So yes, it's a good opportunity. And it does work, and that's what I suppose I'm trying to get across to you. Yes?
Question. In regards to the social media channels, can you sort of like differentiate different ones with like the age brackets as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to touch on that as we go through the different channels. So it doesn't mean with social media that you say, okay, my target audience is 40 to 50-year-olds, so we're going to play on MySpace. Don't bother. You've got to choose a social media channel where your audience is hanging out. Okay, so that's very important in terms of what you do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too, Jeff, because MySpace isn't there. Is that pretty much fallen away, or?
It's yes, it's certainly lost a lot of market share. It's become more a video online music channel. So if you're trying to reach a very young audience and you want to reach them with, you might be a musician, play in MySpace. Okay, so the different platforms you want to play in you've got to choose which one's appropriate to your target audience. And you might have to do a bit of research, but it's certainly you've got to choose the channels appropriate. Okay, why Facebook? Well, it can't be ignored. And what's really powerful about Facebook is that, and its advantage over Google, and you might have seen the fact that Facebook's traffic actually exceeded Google's earlier this year, is that Facebook has information about you that Google doesn't have. Guess what? When you get on Facebook, what do you say? Your age, what you do, your interests. Google doesn't have that. So what you can do with Facebook is you can do some very tight demographic targeting, and you can actually do some advertising spend on that. So Facebook has a distinct advantage in that sense. Doesn't mean it's the only place to market, but it can be done that way. And we'll touch a little bit more. We're just going to look at some case studies too. So it's got a very broad demographic. You might have noticed, excuse me, that the fastest growing segment on Facebook is 50 to 60-year-old women. So don't think it's only Gen Y that's hanging on Facebook. They certainly use it a lot, but it can be used by a whole range. And what's great about Facebook, it's quite easy to use. It actually is good for business, and there's actually 3 different types of actual Facebook pages. You can have a personal profile, you can have a fan page, you can have a group page, which is for NGOs and groups, and then you can have one which is actually for companies called pages. So you need to consider where you want to play. Some people just use the personal, some use the page, some use the groups.